Hello, today I want to talk about a personal budgeting tool called Financier. Like most budgeting tools, it allows you to allocate your monthly expenditure into categories such as groceries, eating out, insurance, and utility bills. During the course of the month, you enter in transactions that you do, and Financier will help inform you about the degree that you are keeping to your budget. When using Financier, it's useful to think of the concept of zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting simply means that every dollar that you earn is allocated towards something, whether it's your expenses, savings, or loan payments. The rationale here is that if you don't plan what you're going to use your money for, it's likely that some of the unallocated money is going to end up being used for less important things. So what I want to show you today is how I use Financier on a daily basis. The first thing you need to do is go to financier.io. Select Create Your Budget. Give your budget a name and set the currency that you want to use. Now you need to set up your accounts. An account is basically any place that you have money. The most common examples of accounts are your wallet, your primary savings account, and your credit card. There are two types of accounts in Financier. The first are on-budget accounts and the other are off-budget accounts. On-budget accounts contain balances that you would like to allocate towards expenses in your monthly budget. Off-budget accounts are for money that you don't intend to use in the current month. You can still use Financier to track transactions in and out of those accounts, but those transactions are not assigned a category, so they do not affect your budget. So I usually use on-budget accounts for my wallet, my primary savings account, and my credit card. And I use off-budget accounts for any type of long-term savings or investment account that I have. Let's start by creating an account for my wallet, savings account, and credit card. When we first create an account, we set the initial balance that we have to work with in each of these accounts. Now let's create a few off-budget accounts. In my case, I have two accounts, one for long-term savings and another for my emergency savings. I also have an account that I use for tracking certain savings goals that I have. For example, my wife and I are planning on going for vacation, so I've created an off-budget account called Vacation, where I will transfer money to every month. To be able to track our expenses, we need to record transactions into Financier. Let's start by creating our first transaction. This is one of the most important transactions you will be recording on a monthly basis, and that is your salary. So in my scenario, my salary goes directly into my savings account. To record that, I open my savings account and select Add a New Transaction. I receive my salary on the first of the month. I set the payee to my employer. A payee is basically an entity other than you to which money flows in or out. Financier will automatically create a payee if one does not already exist with that name. Next, I specify a category. Each transaction in your on-budget accounts require a category. Financier will automatically create a category for your income for the current month. For each transaction, there is an outflow and an inflow field. Outflow is money going out of the account, and inflow is money coming into the account. Since salary is income, I set the inflow column with the amount I earn every month. Now that we've recorded our income, we need to ensure that every dollar that we have earned this month is allocated towards something. The way we do this is by going to the Budget tab and creating categories for how we want to spend our money and then assigning an amount to how much we want to spend for that category during the current month. When you first start Financier, it has some pre-configured top-level categories, and under each of the top-level categories, you'll see subcategories under them. Let's start by deleting any categories that are not relevant. For example, I don't have cable TV, so let's just delete that category. Here, we should also create any additional categories that we need. So for example, I like to have a category called transport to record the money I spend on train and bus rides. You should also budget for any future expenses that you should be saving up for. These are called rainy day funds. In my case, I have rainy day funds for my emergency fund and my retirement fund. Next, we budget for any savings goals that we have. In my case, I'm saving to go on vacation. Finally, you should budget for any loan payments you have. So create the necessary categories there under the debt category. If one of those top level categories is not relevant to you, you can just delete them. To simplify things, let me delete the giving category. You can also create top level categories. So let's create one top level category called leisure. And under that, create categories, create the subcategories movies, media services, and hobbies. At this point, we've already created the budget categories. These are the buckets of expenses that we are going to have. Now we want to assign how much money to allocate to each bucket. So you can see in green, there is a dollar amount, $5,050. This is the amount that we have available to us to budget. If we follow zero-based budgeting, our target is to get this value to zero so that all the money that we earn in a month has a purpose. So now let's allocate the entirety of what we earn to the various categories that we've created until the amount available to budget is zero. At this point, the amount available to budget is zero. Every dollar that I earn this month has been allocated towards something. I usually do this budgeting task on the last day of the month for the following month. This allocation isn't permanent. You can change it from month to month, and if there are unexpected expenses during the month, you can also alter the current month's allocation. For budgeting to work, we need to be disciplined about entering the transactions that we do on a day-to-day basis. So let's create a few transactions and see how they affect the balance in the various budget categories. When creating transactions, if the pay does not exist, it is automatically created. When recording transactions from my savings or rainy day fund, what I do is I transfer those to off-budget accounts so that I don't accidentally use that money for other reasons. So that's pretty much the features of Financier that I use on a day-to-day basis. There are other features as well, but I don't use them as much. This is pretty much my workflow. At the beginning of the month, I allocate money accordingly, and on a day-to-day basis, I record my transactions. So far, I have been using it for 3 to 4 months, and it has been working out pretty well. One thing I want to mention is that Financier is free, but there is also a premium plan. On the free plan, your data is stored in the browser. This means that there is no syncing or backup to the cloud. This means that if you uninstall your browser or format your computer, you will lose your data because your data was in the browser. If you want to sync or back up to the cloud, you will need to pay an annual subscription fee of $12 a year. If you do not want to subscribe to the premium account, you should back up your data often. The way you should back up your data is by clicking the gear next to the Add Account and selecting Backup Budget. If you for some reason lose your data in the browser, you can restore this backup during the initial Create Budget step. So why is this video on this channel? The reason is because Financier is contributor friendly. What do I mean by that? For one, the Financier front end is actually open source. This is the announcement that the creator of Financier posted about the front end going open source. And this is the actual GitLab repository. I should note that only the Financier front end is open source under the MIT license and not the backend. The other reason I consider Financier to be contributor friendly is that the Financier data format is documented. So remember I showed you the backup Financier feature earlier? The format of that file is described in this Medium post. This is useful for anyone who wants to create import-export tools or any other tools for processing financial information. The next thing I want to mention is that there is an excellent Financier community on Reddit. What's interesting is that someone in the Financier community used the fact that it was open source to create a mobile web experience for Financier. I haven't used the mobile web experience, but it's available at beta.fmobile.io. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about Financier. Let me know what you think about this video and Financier in the comments below.